One of the biggest mysteries in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise stems from these two lines in Help Wanted.
They told us that the whole point of this VR game was to undo the bad PR done by a rogue indie game developer who supposedly made up a bunch of crazy stories that tarnished the brand.
While it's true that some stories associated with our name were loosely based on actual events, the majority of them were total fabrications from the mind of a complete lunatic. Lawsuits pending.
Hi, I'm Bruce, and this has been one of the most frustrating plot points in all of FNaF history, at least for me, and I think for a lot of other people as well. And today I think I finally have a clear explanation as to what this meant and what it was trying to point out. And I also have a few things that I would like to point out, so let's just start with one thing that is most likely just an error by Scott. But it still is pretty interesting. The FNaF 4 bedroom is literally illegal as presented. And that's not a joke. According to Utah Building Code, and that is where MatPat has determined that the games take place. In order for a bedroom to legally be a bedroom, it has to have a few things. And one of these things it is clearly missing. And there's no explanation as to why. I'll read this straight from American Legal Publishing. I'm reading this from chapter 18.50, which has the purpose of establishing minimum housing standards for all buildings or portions thereof used or designed or intended to be used for human habitation. Section 190, lighting and ventilation. Every habitable room shall have at least one window facing directly to the outdoors to provide natural light. Where's the window, Scott? Where's the window? It would have been a perfect opportunity to just have a fucking huge window behind the bed. That would have been literally perfect Easter egg opportunity, and it would have completely erased this entire error. So this means that either William's house in the games is off the radar or presumed to be abandoned by the state, or Scott didn't know this and just didn't think about it. That's most likely the explanation. The next thing I'd like to point out is that in this playthrough of Help Wanted, in the Fun with Plushette minigame, Markiplier opens the door behind him and looks out behind him, and he sees the hallways for the FNaF 4 house. However, this is very interesting to me because in FNAF's sister location, we see that these are two entirely separate buildings. Now, it is worth mentioning that although the wallpaper does not match FNaF 4 directly, it does match the FNaF 4 bedroom minigames in Help Wanted. Which actually brings me back to the theory from the intro of this video. As you can clearly see, the FNaF 4 segments in Help Wanted are not labeled as FNaF 4, but FNaF 1 through 3 are labeled as FNaF 1 through 3. Not to mention that the gameplay is completely different in the FNaF 4 segments, and that's what I always attributed the meaning of it not being called FNaF 4 to, is the fact that the gameplay was entirely different. But now looking back at it in retrospect, I really think it does have something to do with those lines at the beginning of the game and in the tapes. This game is intended to be presented as the Fazbear virtual experience once you get past the menu, like the main menu where you go in and it says Help Wanted. After that, it is intended to be the
Freddy Fazbear Virtual Experience.
So it wouldn't make sense that the FNaF 1 through 3 sections would be titled as such, unless those were the games made by said indie developer. Maybe in universe they only had stories about the FNaF 4 house and it was not a game, and that is why the FNaF 4 house is depicted in such an impossible way according to the other games. It would simply be because they had less to reference because it was not a game developed, it was actual in real life events. It's also worth pointing out that in Scott's interview with Dawko, he mentioned that FNaF 1 through 3 was originally intended after the success of FNaF 1. It was originally intended to be a trilogy.
Was this meant to be the final game?
I think when I was making that game, in my mind, that was the end of a trilogy.
And I think this may be Scott's way of actually making that a reality. FNaF 1 through 3 was a trilogy made by that indie developer, and then FNaF 4 onwards actually happened. So that about does it for this video. I'd love to see what you guys have to say about this theory in the comments. I love discussing this game, and I have loved discussing this game since 2014. And if you did enjoy this, click here to watch my video on a mistake MatPat made about how the spring locks work. It's actually pretty fundamental, and it makes his theory of the spring lock failure from the FNaF 3 phone call being the Bito 83 completely impossible. We'll see you in the next one.